Hello, listeners. PG here, bringing you more off-season content. Did you know that in between seasons of REPOD, we still produce bonus episodes for our Patreon supporters? In these episodes, it's just David and I discussing game design, sharing a behind-the-scenes look at production on events like Recon, or doing recaps of games that we play on our escape room tours and trips. In the May bonus episode, David talks about his trip to Spain to play some of the most highly ranked games in the world, and he shares his thoughts on the games he played, as well as on the Spanish escape room scene in general. In this clip, he talks about playing Cyber City 2049, La Taverna, and Outline. And he tells us why he needed to go back to the hotel and change his pants after playing.
Day 2, we went out to Escape Barcelona and did Cyber City 2049. Cyberpunk game, sort of The Matrix meets Terminator thing with a bit of Blade Runner going on. I loved this game. I loved it so much. This has been one of the earlier darlings of the Barcelona scene, and I just loved it. It had a lot of really dynamic gameplay and movement through the space. This was where we started to really see the physicality start to ratchet up a bit.
What do you mean by physicality when you say that?
We're climbing down weird things. We're traversing platforms that are over water. There's a lot going on in here. There were some actor interactions, some hilarious actor interactions. There's so much fun to be had in this game, and not everyone even finds all of the fun. There's just so much going on. Just an absolutely huge fan of this. It was one of my personal favorites of the trip.
Now, what is the average length of these escape rooms?
Peachy, I don't know is the answer, which is crazy. I would say probably 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Wow.
But one of the things that was kind of cool, but also deeply annoying about Spain is that there's sort of an everyone wins and the game takes as long as the game takes vibe. And the game masters don't tell you, and there isn't a clock. And this is all well and good if you're going and playing one game, going out and grabbing dinner and going home. It's not that cool when you are playing an escape room marathon and you think you've padded more than enough, and then you find out that you spent an extra 30 minutes in the game, which is what happened at our next location.
Yeah, I'm trying to plan our itinerary for Brussels, and some escape rooms are like 60 to 90 minutes. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's really interesting. On a lot of levels, I really appreciate it. But when you mix that with another one of the big things in Spain is that a lot of these games have cold starts. You kind of come in off the street directly into the environment. You may or may not interact with a host in any way. And if you are, they're probably already in character and will go miles out of their way to not engage with you on anything that resembles customer service. So it was very difficult for us to be like, hey, we need to be out of here by 1 o'clock or something like that.
If you just said that, would they ignore it or would they answer in character or?
I don't know. We didn't. It's sort of like everything about it is structurally made so that it's not appropriate for you to ask. And it makes it just very difficult.
How do you feel about that?
I don't really love the pure cold starts, to be completely honest. I liked them a lot more until I had to do a ton of them in a row. And at this point, I didn't have knee pads with me, but if I had knee pads, I would have loved the opportunity to just ask each game master, should I put knee pads on before going into this game?
Yeah, I love the cold starts, but I would like maybe cold start, and then you're ushered in, and then some kind of customer service break into reality, and then cold start again. Or some version of that.
I'm fine with a little bit of customer service and then throw me into the reality. You don't need to start the magic circle, stop it, and then start it again. I don't think that's the move. But
I think it's back to transition spaces. I think you need a little bit of that slide into it.
Yeah. One of the other issues is you just never knew what to expect. And frequently, a lot of these companies don't have a bathroom that's accessible to you, which, again, when you're traveling, is a burden. One other major note that I will just toss out. If you are pregnant or plan to become pregnant, just skip Spain. Just don't do it. because if you have any kind of medical issue where you're thinking like, oh yeah, I really don't feel comfortable climbing or crawling, or just skip Spain. There are a lot of other countries for you. I definitely have found myself wondering what is the average and median age of Spanish customers, because it feels like these games are designed for younger folk. Especially one of our teammates who's 10 years older than me was definitely like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play these kinds of games 10 years from now. And I don't know how I feel about that, was like the reaction to it. Before I get back into it, some of it is really cool, and some of it was just sort of needless. Just all of these crawl spaces where there's no way to bypass. Whereas like in the US, you can reasonably assume that if there's a crawl space traversing between areas, either only one person needs to do it and they're going to get something or some information and come back, or that person is going to crawl through, get to the other end, and they'll be able to open up a bypass door and not everyone has to crawl. That ain't the case in Spain. You are all crawling, and some of these crawls have like uphills and downhills. The ceiling height changes. The surfaces are, if they're padded, the padding was pretty worn away, and you were basically crawling on metal or wood. My knees were wrecked for like 3 weeks. I was so bruised.
Comes home with bruised kneecaps.
so bruised. So yeah, anyway, Cyber City, super cool game. Then we went to La Taverna at the City Escape Room. This is kind of one of the new hotness games in Spain. It's damn cool. I don't really want to give away too much about it because a lot of people haven't played it yet. It starts off in sort of a 17th century, 18th century tavern. Some really strong actor interactions. And the game just goes to places I wasn't expecting. It has a really strong narrative arc for you as a player. I really enjoyed it. It felt like a hell of an adventure. It was also the game where we played the worst collectively. No particular reason. We just did not work especially well as a team in this game. And we still loved it in spite of that. But it was definitely a bumpy ride for us. Damn cool game. Then we went to Outline Escape Room. We played Outline. This was one of the big horror games there. And when I say big, I mean...
I've not heard of this game.
Freaking giant. Just massive game. Really nifty game. It's playing in a different space than Stay in the Dark. We walked out of this one filthy. Cyber City and Outline, between the two of them, when we got out of these, everyone had to go home, take showers. We were all talking about how we were blowing our noses and we were like blowing out like dust and dirt.
Because they just purposefully make it dirty for the atmosphere.
I don't think... It's a little bit hard for me to say, but talking to some Spanish enthusiasts, my impression is that it's more of an upkeep thing and that these spaces aren't being cleaned that readily. Because talking to Spanish players who played earlier, they're just sort of like, oh, I had no idea that Spanish games were dirty. And I'm like, let me tell you.
I thought it was because they were like throwing sawdust and dirt in the corners to make it look and feel real.
No, I think some of it is that some of the construction materials they're using are kind of real, and there's gravel and it's getting broken up a little bit as people step on it and it's getting dusty. But I think a lot of it is that the game spaces are big. A lot of the crawl spaces are awkward, and ain't nobody cleaning these things.
I had a thought the other day. So I really hate when I go into escape rooms and it's obvious where you're supposed to press on the painting because it's all dirty in the one spot, right? Yep. Or whatever. Things get worn, yes, but the dirt really drives me nuts.
Berlin on the map is worn away. It's just like a white spot on a map. And you're like, okay, I wonder if the answer is Berlin.
Well, so I went in to get my nails done the other day, and they always make you wash your hands before you start anything. And I was just kind of wondering, what if escape rooms were like, everybody go wash your hands? If this was just a customary to wash your hands before you start playing a game where you're touching everything with your hands.
I mean, I don't think that's the solution to the problem here. I think some of that is that you just need to clean stuff. And I think you need to just like manage wear. I think that these are like parts of it. Because like you can wash your hands and that might reduce some of that, but it's not going to fix this problem. This was a pervasive issue, but I don't know. There are definitely a lot of factors where I will comfortably go and tell you, I think everyone should go play in the Netherlands. I think if you can handle horror, you should go play in Athens. I have a lot more asterisks right now on whether you are the right person or not to go to Spain. Although, to be fair, I have some asterisks on Athens as well.
Is it like higher highs and lower lows?
This game would have been just as cool and cooler if someone had gone and taken a vacuum through it every once in a while. Or it would have been really nice if there were some crawl spaces that were a little bit padded and that padding was maintained a little bit. Just little things that when you're playing a one-off game, they're kind of like nice to haves, I guess, maybe. But when you're playing a ton of them in a row, you really start to feel it.
For the June bonus episode, I share an in-depth look at Neotropolis, the 5-day cyberpunk-themed immersive festival that takes place in the Mojave Desert. I give an overview of how the event works and talk about the LARP that I helped create. We also recap our escape room tour to New Mexico. In this clip, I talk a little bit about the LARP aspect of Neotropolis and explain how factions work. I also tell David about something that literally blew me away. I'll explain kind of how the storyline works overall, which is there are official allegiances that you can join, and there's 3 of them. So the one that I was a part of was called Helix. We are the mega corporation.
Definitely the good guys.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. We are providing all of your consumer goods. Listen, the world wouldn't run without us corpos to tell you how you want to live your life and all the things you need and you can't live without.
I have to say, I really appreciate your voice is changing when you're talking in that tone, and I really appreciate it.
I loved being part of Big Corpo. I thought it was so much fun. And so, yeah, we are the bad guys, not bad guys. You know, definitely the bad guys.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
And so you have Helix, the megacorp, and then you have N-Line, which is military. They're kind of like private military. The backstory is they used to be employed by Helix. They were like is it Blackwater? Is that the...
Yeah, Blackwater rebranded as Z.
Yeah, something along those lines. And then at some point, they split off and decided to form their own organization. And then the third allegiance you could join is...
Also, clearly not exactly the good guys either.
Everybody sees themselves as the good guys, right?
I know it. I mean, that is, in my opinion, a prerequisite for not every good villain, but almost every good villain.
And then we also had the resistance because, of course, any good dystopian story needs the underdog. So this storyline was really about the power struggles between these 3 allegiances. Some people came and did a few storylines and then decided to go do other stuff, which is fine. There's no commitment to see it through the end. There were definitely a few players who were hardcore, like, this is all I care about. I'm here for the LARP. I'm here for the storyline. And I thought that was really cool, actually. I had people come up to me afterwards. They were like, I've never done anything like this. I was a completely different person here. They were like, I was outgoing. I talked to everybody. They were like, at home, I don't even leave my room. You know what I mean? And so some of these stories I got were just so amazing. It was really very cool to hear. We're taking a moment to thank our upcoming sponsors for Season 8, Morty, Buzzshot, and Cogs by Clockwork Dog.
We thank them for their ongoing support, and we are so excited for all of the things we're going to bring you in the fall with Season 8.
I used to wish every day for an app that does exactly what Morty does. It lets me track all of the escape rooms I've played, and I also use it to find games around me, including game reviews and open time slots. You can even find discount codes. And the best part, it's all free. It's got a great website experience, and it's also available on both iPhone and Android, so you'll never be without your Morty app.
I believe in Morty so much that I have a stake in it as an advisor, and I always enjoy the time that I get to spend giving the Morty team my input and suggestions. Start discovering and tracking your immersive outings today. You can learn more at morty.app/repod. That's REPOD to sign up and get a special badge for our listeners. We'd also like to thank longtime sponsor Buzzshot. Buzzshot is escape room software powering business growth, player marketing, and improving the customer experience. They offer an assortment of pre- and post-game features, including robust waiver management, branded team photos, and streamlined review management.
Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. REPOD listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod. That's REPOD to learn more. We'd also like to thank sponsor Cogs. Are you looking to up your game when it comes to creating a more theatrical experience for your escape room or immersive show? Cogs by Clockwork Dog is a software hardware platform that makes it easy to create a show with lighting and sound cues, whether you're totally new to escape room tech or a seasoned engineer.
Get the Cogs starter set for only $130 plus free shipping to the USA. This bundle is usually valued at $257. You can learn more and purchase your starter set at cogs.show. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. And thank you so much to Cogs by Clockwork Dog for their support.
Heartfelt thanks to sponsors Morty, Buzzshot, and Cogs by Clockwork Dog. Our sponsors are making Season 8 possible. You can find links and details in the show notes. Supporting our sponsors supports this podcast. There were a bunch of other factions as well. The Sentinels is one faction. You'll see people that are in full out like uniforms, really cool military security uniforms. And those are also all volunteers. They're there mostly to create the atmosphere of an authoritarian regime. But they'll do things like escort certain VIPs. Sometimes they can and will arrest people. In fact, one of the missions that I gave my people was like, we have these boxes. Nobody is to interfere with these boxes unless they are working for Helix. And of course, the resistance is coming and messing with them. So I had tasked my people with, like, if you see anyone who's not authorized, you can question them. And if they're not authorized, then you get a sentinel and you have them arrested. And they had a lot of fun with that. So those are some of the kind of interactions and missions we would give people. There was a faction called Tinker Repair Shop. And literally, this was 3 guys who would sit there and they would fix your stuff. They were literally a repair shop. So if you had anything like tech-wise or whatever that broke, maybe you had something fall off of a costume, they would glue it back on for you. I thought that was a really fun idea. There's a faction called Janet's. If you have watched The Good Place, you'll know who Janet is. They're basically a bot that will fulfill any wish you want. And so if you agree to work for them, they'll give you a little tag. People will just be like, if they'll see there's a Janet, they'll be like, Janet, can you get me this? And that person will just go and like get you a drink. There is bounty hunting. So you can sign up to be a bounty hunter, which you can be either a bounty or a hunter. I think it doesn't really matter which one, but you get a device. And when you are around someone else who has that device, you look around and it like buzzes or vibrates, and you'll look around and see each other and you'll be like, you, and you go and like you connect them. And then I think it's a pretty simple thing where it'll be like a countdown. And then when the light turns green, you both have to press a button, and whoever presses it first wins that bounty. It's something like that.
Okay.
So there's just like a lot of fun mini games and services that people provide. There's shops that just have free ramen. You can go anytime and just get free ramen. And after midnight is usually when they're the most packed. Everyone's sitting around eating. There's so many fun missions. There's people who have programmed actual missions, like these energy cores that you have that are like all tech driven actually, and you have to deliver them to certain places and then bring them back. So I'm not going to talk about everything that's there, but there's a taste of some of the offerings. And again, these are all just user generated.
Okay. That's awesome. This is the first time I'm hearing about basically all of this.
And then, so the camp situation. So like we had said in the previous interviews, there is a hotel you can stay at. It is kind of a pain in the ass to drive. It's about 20 to 30 minutes away over like a rough road. So it's not ideal, but maybe for people coming out of town, it'll be easier than trying to camp. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say, if you're coming out of town, maybe consider renting an RV then. Then you can be on site and comfortable. I do think that staying on site is different. You are able to stay more in that mindset and feel like you're living in that world.
That makes sense to me.
Every year of this event, the weather has been completely different. There has been a different challenge every single year. I found that actually one of the hardest things is having to account for every type of weather because it's so unpredictable. So the first year, it was rainy and cold. And then the second year, it was very hot, like super, super hot and no wind at all. And then this year, what we had to contend with was windstorms. It was pretty windy most of the time. I would say like 10 to 30 miles an hour, which was fine. It was cold at night. I could live with all of it, actually. It wasn't bad. Temperature-wise, it was very ideal. It was warm during the day and a little bit cold at night, but not crazy. But on Friday, I woke up and my entire tent felt like it was about to come tumbling down. We had a really bad windstorm. And what I hear from it, like even Jared had said, he'd been doing Wasteland Weekend out there for like 10, 15 years, something like that. And he said this was the worst wind they'd ever had out there because it was sustained gusts for about 9 hours straight, probably 50 miles an hour with like 70 miles an hour gusts. So a lot of tents got destroyed. A lot of structures were having issues.
And that is not just, you're in a normal location and having gusts like that. You are out in the desert surrounded by sand. And as we all know, sand is rough and coarse and gets everywhere.
Oh my God. I got back to my tent and it was like an inch. Everything was coated in sand.
Ugh, okay.
It's like a lot of tents broke and collapsed. So that was kind of a really rough day. And so you got to come prepared. I knew there was going to be wind. So you bring goggles, you bring the face masks. But it's not like that. Last year, there was no wind. It's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, but you know what? This is what I will say about it is that there is nothing like a crisis to bring people together.
I mean, I love me a good crisis.
And that was actually the best takeaway I got from that was all of the people, all of our neighbors, strangers who all came together to help somebody's structure who was having a problem. Like people ran over from all the other tents to come help each other out. And that feeling that I got from seeing that was actually really incredible. And everybody who goes to this event is already so kind and about giving back. And it's really true. It's not in like a cheesy way. There's something really special about the community there. David and I both went to Belgium separately over the summer and played a whole bunch of escape rooms. In the July bonus episode, David and I compare notes on the escape room scene in Belgium. We have a particularly in-depth discussion about Demise of the Gracers, an epic game set in a dilapidated train yard that truly felt like a real-life video game. In this clip, we recap a few of the escape rooms we played that top the Tropica list for games in Belgium. And then we drove all the way to Bruges to go to the movies experience. This was one of the highlights of the trip for me. It's incredible from the minute you walk in. It is really unique. It is in a private residence.
Yeah, which is kind of underselling the size and scope of what it is. It's quite large.
This man has an airplane hangar attached to his home, apparently.
It's an impressive space. The thing that really struck me with the movies experience is that it was maybe the flowiest game that I have ever played. It's almost impossible to not keep moving through this experience.
But a lot of that is because he has a lot of wording specifically directing you what to do, which I probably could have done without a little bit, but I didn't hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know that the style of play was exactly my style of play, but there is no downtime. There is no, I wonder what we're supposed to do next. The lights, the sound, the cluing, everything is crystal clear what you need to be doing at any given point in time. It's very on rails in a really interesting way. I really respect it, and it takes you through a lot of different scenes. The other thing about this game is that it's just sort of this ongoing project for the creator who has continually added new scenes, new props, new puzzles, new everything to it. Also another game that Matthew had given a Golden Lock Award to from his previous trip. Totally understand why. So whatever I played, whatever you played, is enhanced from what Matthew played. And if someone were to go in 6 months, my guess is that there'll be ways that it is better still. And so it's this living, breathing thing.
It is a passion project, and this was all built by one man. He is such an enthusiast that there are homages to other beautiful games in Europe, mostly in Amsterdam, sprinkled not only in the game, but also in the lounge experience afterwards. And so I think if you really want to appreciate kind of the Easter eggs that he's put into this game, make a trip to Amsterdam first. Go play all of the games in Europe and Amsterdam before.
It's not really Amsterdam so much as it is kind of the northern Netherlands area. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say that if I had a regret about our trip, it's that we didn't have enough time to just hang out a little bit longer and continue to talk to him because he was so switched on and so engaged with escape rooms, and he was a joy to talk to. The bar area lounge thing that he built outside of the game was really cool.
It's magical. And we had no idea to expect that. I'm so grateful that I had allotted a reasonable amount of time in between from that game to our next game afterwards, that we had almost an hour to sit in there and chat with him, which I wasn't expecting. So the other piece of advice is if you go to this, make sure you kind of build in time for afterwards, because he is an enthusiast. He loves talking to other enthusiasts about not only his game, but all the others. So if you really want to get the most out of this experience that you're traveling so far for, make sure you allot time for afterwards, the after experience as well.
Yeah, for us, we had our hardest transition of the trip, going from the movies experience to De Gouden Kooi, Hans' Revenge, and The Secret of St. Romaldus.
Oh, that was our same. That's what we did after this as well.
Yeah, so we had our hardest transition, which was also made harder by a drawbridge being broken. We ended up being like 45 minutes late to play Hans' Revenge, which was stressful, but thankfully they pad their games quite a bit there, and we had enough time to play the whole thing without being rushed. Yeah, we played Hans' Revenge, another Golden Lock Award winner given by Matthew, and
number 5 game on the 2023 Tropical list, I think.
It's certainly up there. Yeah, what'd you think of Hans' Revenge?
I liked Hans' Revenge. I feel like it was a little bit hyped up for me. I think that if I had played it without knowing a number 5 on the Tropical list, I would have probably enjoyed it a heck of a lot more. I think the set was beautiful, outrageously large. I think that I didn't connect with the puzzles. I don't really know what it is. I liked the experience. It was beautiful. The set was gorgeous. The opening set was incredible. I wish we had more to do in even walking in that first set. I feel like we're barely spending any time in some of these.
For me, I would say that I felt a little burned by hype on this one also. I really liked the game. I had a really good time. I didn't need all of the hype around it. But
I think if I had played this game 3 years ago, I think I would have been absolutely enthralled. It was just at that point, some of the things that I'm sure were groundbreaking, I had already seen done, maybe in some cases seen done better. So some of the reveals lost maybe a little bit of the magic for me, which is unfortunate, and it's not the game's fault.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to, there's stuff I don't want to spoil. The story really didn't land for me. It is aesthetically, from a build standpoint, absolutely incredible. And it has a really different feel in a lot of ways from most escape rooms, which I loved. I didn't have a lot of issues with the puzzles. I thought the game played pretty well. But yeah, I thought there was a more clever place to take it. And then we played
Secrets of St. Romaldus.
So this was kind of the big surprise game for me of the trip. I really liked St. Romaldus.
So did I. Everyone else on my team was kind of more iffy on it, but I really enjoyed this game, actually.
I loved it. We've played over the last few years so many church, cathedral type horror or vaguely horror games, particularly in Europe. And this one is one of the only ones that took a really novel approach to the resolution of the story.
And it was funny.
It was funny. It wasn't too scary. It didn't take itself too seriously. It didn't go really hard into the evil clergy, dead kids, demon type stuff. Like, it did its own thing. And I really appreciated it for doing so.
Yeah, no, I definitely had fun. I think that maybe they need to pad their crawl spaces a little bit better, but it is a funny game. It's quite irreverent. Just so you know, anybody coming who's maybe more religious.
If you're the kind of person who's looking at a horror religious game and being like, that's not for me, this game is still also not for you.
Exactly.
Like, if your objection to the game is not the horror, but the religion, then this game is not for you. But yeah,
it's not really that horror. It's not that scary.
No, it's not scary. But no, I want to be clear. If you were offended by or put off by the use of religion in these games, like, that's what I mean. This game is not going to be for you because it does its own thing. And I'm quite confident that for some it will be offensive.
And there's also quite a few accessibility issues with it, I think.
There definitely are.
And there's especially one scene where I was convinced that my friends were puzzle jumping because I was like, if it was only me and the other girls doing it, that area, basically somewhere above our heads, is absolutely not accessible to us. And I was like, you guys are breaking the flow of the puzzles because there's no way that should be what you should be doing right now. And apparently it was. It would have been 100 times more difficult for anybody who's shorter. And also there's a couple times where there's climbing involved, there's crawling, and I don't know that there's a bypass. So you are definitely going to miss parts of the game if accessibility is going to be a concern for you.
Yeah, but at this point in our trip, this was the last game we played, and my knees were pretty sore from various other crawling, and I was really frustrated by the lack of padding in a specific crawl space. A fair amount of crawling, and I ended up basically just like...
You got a bear crawl.
I was doing some combination of bear crawl and butt shuffle and like flopping around on the floor because my knees were like...
Somersaulting.
No more. But I am working on a solution for the knee pad thing. That's a thing that we'll talk about in the future, but I'm working on I got a plan.
Team coveralls, team jumpsuits. I'm waiting for my Rhea coveralls, David.
That's me a plan. So stay tuned on that. But yeah, love St. Romaldus. Really, I love Der Guten Koi thoroughly, but St. Romaldus was a surprise and may have just been that it had less hype around it. But I also think that just like some of the choices they made in it really did resonate for me.
I hope you enjoyed these clips from our Patreon exclusive episodes. Season 8 of Reality Escape Pod will be launching in just a few short weeks. We have some incredible guests lined up, and I cannot wait for you to hear these interviews. Meanwhile, if you're still hungry for more of our content, you can check out everything we have to offer on our Patreon. Listen to the rest of the episodes now by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/roomescapeartist for access to our library of over 80 bonus aftershows.